Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we go week to week watching a streaming favorite. And on this episode, we will be discussing the most recent episode of Your Friends and Neighbors, Halfway to Invisible. Sauna, halfway to invisible. Do you feel halfway to invisible?
What an interesting question. I know there's a thing about middle-aged women feeling like they suddenly become invisible. It's not something I particularly have struggled with. Maybe because I work in such a male-dominated field, my whole career has been about making myself visible and unable to be ignored. So perhaps I have opted out of allowing people to let me feel invisible.
Okay, before we get into the breakdown of the episode, a couple of pieces of news, by the way. There'll be a lot more information on this, but Sona, I've changed to different podcasting platform as part of the reason that the Euphoria recap episode came out later than usual. But it's a network of different podcasters. So there might be an opportunity for us to do crossover events with other podcasters and such. So for example, a lot of podcasters on this network are actually into reality TV. So maybe we'll do a little sampling of reality TV, do a little guest appearances on some of these other podcasts. So definitely looking for an opportunity to do something like that. And I'll give more information on that as we go forward. Another piece of news, of course, is that the Patreon is out there, everybody. So if you want to listen to additional content, we continue to watch the Christopher Nolan films via the Patreon. So check that out. And there's an introductory video there and other content that will be there. I think that the monthly streaming guide that I've been publishing in the main feed or as a subset of an episode will probably just continue there. And any kind of random short content will pop up there. It's all free right now, so make sure you check the show notes for the link to the Patreon. We'll be paywalled at some point in the future, and hopefully you enjoy that content that's there. But there'll always be something there, and it'll always be available to subscribe for free. So check it out, patreon.com, and just search for Need Some Introduction podcast, or look at the link in the show notes. Sona, this weekend, we get the first big movie of the summer, which I would actually argue might have been the Michael Jackson film, which made over $200 million last weekend. So kind of a very early start to the summer, and already has been a bunch of hits. So this year, they had a pretty weak year last year coming off the pandemic. Hollywood's been struggling, and last year was a pretty bad year for the movies. But so far this year, it's been very strong, and get a very early start for the summer with the Michael Jackson film. Even though it's not the official start of the summer, it's already kind of, the box office wise, it's definitely that kind of box office success, but probably going to be even bigger. And people are somewhat surprised by this, is The Devil Wears Prada 2, which is coming out this week.
People are excited about this movie.
The numbers overseas especially look absolutely astronomical. It's like outpacing Marvel films. So it's a huge success. It's like a Marvel movie for middle-aged women, apparently.
We need more of those.
It's actually true, right? There's always like a dearth of products for women audiences. And then,
Speaking of course, being invisible, yeah.
Yeah. And then when they make them, they're very successful. And then somehow there's always a head scratching that it happens over and over again. My question to you, Sona, is do you plan to see this movie? Do you have any relationship with the first film?
I do, but not in this passionate way that seems to exist. I had read the book around the time it came out. And then for whatever reason, I never did watch the movie. I often feel like when I read the book, I feel as a general rule, the book is usually better than the movie. So if I've read the book, I'm only going to be disappointed by the movie. But then a few people told me, no, I think you really like this movie. So at some point, years later, I watched it. I did enjoy it, but I don't have this passionate feeling about it. This is something that I would not rush to see, but I will probably watch at home on a weekend at some point.
I really liked the original film. I remember not seeing it in the theater, really being like, and then hearing, through the grapevine that people were saying, oh, it's actually a good film. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that Meryl Streep's performance is good or whatever, but whatever. And then finally catching it when it was ubiquitous on cable TV And it's a really entertaining film. And, I've never read the book, so I can't compare if it's one to the other. But I was really impressed with it. I thought Meryl Streep is absolutely fantastic in that first film. So a very fun thing. And like you mentioned, almost certainly going to watch this when it comes to streaming. Definitely not going to run out to see this in theaters, I don't think. But I'm sure many, many people will. So
it's a great girls' night out activity.
Yes. And my wife and her friends have already been planning. When my wife, who I don't think has seen the first one or barely remembers the first one, so not like a cultural touchstone for her, but the lady friends are trying to organize something. So
yeah, I have a feeling she'll be able to drop right into that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be. There's not that much.
You don't really need the lore of
exactly
Dolores Prada 1.
The crazy thing about this, I cannot believe when they were saying it's been 20 years them trying to make the sequel. And I'm like, is it possible that this movie is 20 years old? And it is 22 years old. And what's so crazy about it is obviously it's just, and this is going to tie into your friends and neighbors, but just feeling like, man, I've gotten older, is that seeing Meryl Streep in that movie and being like, wow, it's so good that this older woman has this huge success late in her career. This is me putting quote marks around all those statements because me watching this film 20 something years ago, I'm like, wow, she's a bigger star now. And she had a string of big hits after that movie as well. Maybe some of her biggest hits for her entire career. So I'm like, wow, I can't believe she had these hits late, quote unquote, late in her career. And here she is like, 76 now? It's like, wow, 20 years on and she's still making blockbuster films. So very few people have that kind of career, especially women. So good.
Absolutely.
And of course, Emily Blunt. And I remember seeing Emily Blunt in that film probably for the first time and being like, wow, who is this? And of course, now she's one of the biggest stars in the world and has that Steven Spielberg movie coming out in a few weeks. And of course, also another giant star whose name
Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway, of course, was maybe the biggest star of all these, although has kind of fallen on hard times recently, box office wise. But she has 5 films coming out this year, including The Odyssey, which is going to be huge, of course. And as the movie is also going to be huge. This movie is going to make at least $500 million, probably significantly more than that, which is astounding, obviously. So, and good on all of that, and good for people that go back in the movie theaters, especially middle-aged people. Like all these films that have been hits are with young people. Middle-aged people have been avoiding the movie theaters. So good to have middle-aged people going back and seeing a movie in the movie theaters. All right, Sona, let's talk about this episode, Halfway to Invisible.
So wait, before you go any further, I didn't get a chance to ask you, do you feel halfway to invisible?
Oh, I do.
You do?
I do. But we could talk about it in the context of the show as well.
Hard for a white man out there these days.
God, it's so hard. You don't understand. I just think it's everybody. I think it's what this episode is about, right? Like the most generous read. And I have so many negative things to say about this episode.
I do too, but I do have one bright spot, but yes.
Oh, can't wait to hear what your bright spot is. Maybe it's the same as mine. But the thing I was going to say is that I was so honestly irritated by this episode.
Understandable.
I started to take notes about it. And as I was taking notes, I started to realize what this episode was actually doing. This whole idea of halfway to invisible. And it's like seeing someone going through that entire aging process all in one episode, right? You have mostly these people who are headed towards oblivion and, halfway there, let's say, and dealing with the fact that, the fear, right? The fear of being invisible, of being.
This is my bright spot. I mean, not that this is like a great feeling, like bright, like happy, but bright in that. And I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I think this is touching on where the themes of this show should be. Please continue.
Yeah, it was. And honestly, I did not come to that until I was taking the notes because I was too viscerally annoyed by the show as I was watching it. Like, honestly, just sitting there being like, why are we talking about this? Why are we here? What is this? Like, just very irritated by the experience of watching the show. And then only in kind of gathering my thoughts, I realized that for the most part, again, I have a lot of negative things still to say, that there is a thematic through line through all of this, that you have Tori as this young woman who's trying to make her own way, but now still second guessing, like, should I make the decision I'm making now? You have Mel who's like in the middle of her life, trying to guide Tori, even though it's like, well, I'm not happy with my life, but still I'm trying to force you into the same path that I took, even though I'm not even happy with my situation. And her sexual frustration obviously represents that. There's a lot of this is about like sexual frustration and sexual performance, just the idea of being attractive, right? Not being invisible. And it's not just sexually, right? You have Barney's wife, who now has finally announced that she's pregnant. And there is this dual side of it where it's like, it's new life. So she still has value in society, so to speak. And, even biologically in the most primal way imaginable. And yet, there's probably all these women around her are all worried about menopause. And of course she's pregnant. So it's just kind of the two sides of that, how they appreciate it. And then at the same time, realize that it's like a reminder of their own menopausal situation. And then these men, like Coop on that yacht, rekindling this relationship, something he didn't do before, and now taking that opportunity with Cricket, that billionaireess. It's like they are still vital. They're older. They're very age appropriate. Luckily, they didn't have him hook up with like a 25-year-old girl. The idea that, here's an age appropriate mate for him, and that the two of them, I should say, are almost play acting at being that younger version of themselves and still vital in that way. And then, of course, Jack, right? Corbin Burson's character, where he's like still trying to pretend to be that, and of course failing at it and embarrassing himself. And so, and of course I forgot to mention, I definitely should bring up Nick, right? Nick says this in the episode where Barney's like, hey, we can build this ourselves if we go one gym at a time. And he's like, I used to be a basketball player. I am famous right now. That is going to go away. He's halfway to invisible, right? Everybody here is halfway to invisible. And so anyway, thematically, this, in my notes, very cohesive. The experience of watching this, I'm like, why are we paying attention to? So that's the cleanest representation of what's happening here thematically.
I agree.
But there's so much other stuff going on in here that I'm like, okay, what is all this other stuff? And we can get into it.
I agree.
But what do you think about like kind of like just that outline I made there? I assume from what you said, that is what you appreciated in this episode, right? Is that kind of illustrating that, right?
That's why I had texted you previously. A lot was frustrating, but some of it was interesting because I think it is trying to articulate that concept. And I think that concept is the most interesting thing about this show, is that feeling and what people are doing about that feeling. And the idea that maybe Coop is making all of these poor decisions because it is the result of some sort of midlife crisis, realization of his mortality, of what life is and what it could be or could have been. And so he's making these bizarre bananas decisions. I think that's where the interesting part of this show is. But I also think that theme is very deep and they're doing it a disservice in so many ways. Like, for example, this theme about Mel being in perimenopause, I feel like it is such a superficial treatment of that issue that also is very like one note. I don't know what I'm supposed to be getting from this, except that she has the night sweats and she kind of wants to have sex, but kind of can't have sex. Like that's all I've gathered here. Whereas I think there's a much more interesting idea about women in perimenopause that while there is this idea that your hormones are out of control, so it's making you a raging B-word, I think there's a counterpart to that says, no, this is the age that you realize you are done putting up with everybody else's BS. You see how hard I'm trying not to curse here.
You're allowed to curse, by the way.
What?
You're allowed to curse, by the way.
I know, but I'm trying to be better about it. So, because I do curse like a sailor sometimes. So the hormonal fluctuations are maybe taking away that screening process that you had the whole of your adult life, where you kind of grinned and got through things to say, I am done putting up with all of this crap. It's no more unreasonable today than it was 10 years ago, but I am done taking it. Right? I think that is a really interesting exploration of this stage of life for women, that they are having a realization of it's now or never. How long am I going to be a martyr? How long am I going to put up with things that I should never have put up with to begin with? Instead, we're getting, this lady's really sweaty and when she sleeps. I don't know.
Right. But by the way, that is what the data actually shows as well, but not the point of this show, and driven home by the way that all of this is motivated, to your point about like Coop's actions and everybody's actions potentially, even Mel having this affair back when she did have that affair with Nick initially, that all of this is this fear of death, basically, or of oblivion. And when I say that, it could be like culturally, just like losing status, simply as that. And that is what's motivating a lot of the irrational acts here. And like you said, that could be more intelligently addressed. But of course, that is the point of all of this thematically, is driven home by the final moment in the episode, which is Coop's father dying, right? So it's like, if we have this continuum of everybody on this continuum of where am I on the spectrum of being virile to not virile, or being too old and pretending to be young, and all of that we see here, all this performance, all of that context of like me trying to act like the young guy and taking too much Viagra and all of that comedy, if you want to call it that, over the course of the episode, is driven home by the fact that, and Coop's father dies, right? So it's like, yes, because that's the thing that everybody's terrified about, is that at some point, when you don't expect it, it's going to happen, right?
To you or to someone you love.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Inevitably, it's going to come to reframe this. But what you brought up, I think, is something that the show is not exploring, and maybe it will at some point in the near future, that there is the other side of being menopausal, of being middle-aged, like you said, that theoretically it's like letting go of all the competition to climb the social ladder, to, like there's this whole idea that at a certain point that, and you see it in some of these polling, that people who are in their early retirement or approaching retirement are the happiest they will be. Of course, then they become very old and debilitated and they're not as happy anymore. But there's this window of time where it's like, I don't have to impress anybody else. I don't have to raise a young child. I don't have to care as much about the presentational aspects of my life. So you can get, and like to your point, it's like, there is a side of this where like the menopausal women don't have to worry about all that, right? Don't have to be fixated on dolling themselves up to aspire to be attractive the way younger women often need to be, right? So that whole competition, that internal competition, can quiet down, which maybe gives you a better relationship with a deeper version of yourself. That is a side of this that's not being explored. I mean, obviously all these people, and maybe that's where the wealth commentary comes in, are all still trying to be like, I don't play basketball anymore, but I want to be as famous as these young basketball players. I am not, 25 years old anymore, but I want to, rejuvenate my body in some way to make me feel like I'm still 25. And these men who are trying to hook up with younger women, all of this is buffoonish, potentially. And there's not, or maybe the show is trying to critique this, but I don't know. I don't see that side of the argument, is basically what I'm trying to say. But I think that it is definitely a topic worth exploring more deeply, like you said, than we are exploring it here. But yeah, I don't know how, I'm not sure how deep this exploration is, but there's an opportunity to obviously continue to explore it.
The thing is, for me, first of all, they've created this chorus of women that we keep seeing in the sauna. This is a perfect time to be having conversations like this. So it's built into the show right there. They're just choosing not to do it. Right. So that's frustrating. And then also there are those throwaway comments. Like at the party, there was a comment about, all these 25-year-old women or 30-year-old women or whatever. Like it's right there. Just go the extra mile and have a conversation about how that makes you feel as a middle-aged woman to say, oh, that was once me, but now look at the stage of life I'm in. But also, if you don't want to do any of that's fine. The show doesn't have to be about that. But then we don't need to spend this amount of time with Mel.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, before I want to actually dig deeper into the problems with the show, not just in this episode, but across the show. But before then, I want to get your feel on a couple of things. Speaking of the sauna scene, we have the situation where Sam is now in the sauna and Mel is not. And she shows up late. And then, of course, she leaves early because Sam is there. What do you think about this? Like within a week, within a week on the show, obviously, but theoretically, considering what we're seeing here, this is just days after they have like accepted Sam back into the fold because she made this job offer. And she is now completely back in the fold here. And I know this bothered you last week. What did you think of the whole circumstance where Sam is just like, now everyone's cool with having Sam back in the fold?
So I don't like the Mel character, but I felt bad for her here because
Sam?
These are not your friends.
Sam or Mel Mel, you mean specifically, right?
Yeah. If somebody could do this to your husband, and also, by the way, they were sleeping together, which is like a girl code thing, right? That your friend slept with your husband. It's not, technically.
She was with Nick at the time.
I know.
It's still, I agree that it's not proper.
That part I could get over, but that together with the framing him for murder.
That's the part I can't get over for sure.
Yeah. Maybe it's supposed to tell us something about how superficial these people are and that they really just want to smooth awkward things over. And I guess if that's what we're supposed to take from that, I get it, but it seems bananas to me.
I completely agree. I was like utterly shocked by the fact that the show continues to seem to expect that, and maybe tell me if you disagree with this, because your read on it possibly is that one way to read this is that, and I agree, by the way, I'm like, these people are not her friends. These people are terrible people to just behave the way they're behaving because they're just like, oh, she has good stories to tell. I'm like, that's not a reason to betray your friend, basically, is my opinion. But like you said, maybe this is like a critique of these women's behavior. But the way Mel and people react to Mel, it seems like the show is saying that she needs to get over it. And I'm like, that's what I can't understand. Like, this is not something you can get over. And they in defense of the show,
scene at the end, which we can talk about later, but I still have issues.
I was actually going to transition directly to that scene. That the only thing in the defense of the show that maybe it is actually addressing this and seeing it for what it is, because up until this point, it seems like the tone is Mel is being irrational, is what I think is maybe the best scene in the entire show.
Agree.
And like, I was not a huge fan of Olivia Munn in season 1. I think she's one of the best performers in season 2.
Agree.
And she is saving the Sam character because as ridiculous as she is contrived to even still be on the show, when she's saying like, I don't know why I did what I did. I'm a terrible person. You won't forgive me, but you know what? I won't forgive myself. And I was desperate. And that was a great scene. Like it actually explains her psychology for the first time.
I agree. Perhaps. It was a good scene, but that's not what we've seen from her character.
Exactly.
Her character seems to be preoccupied with, oh, everybody's treating me like an outcast and it's so upsetting. My kid didn't get invited to the birthday party. We haven't seen any of that recognition internally until this scene. So I have a problem with that. And I honestly think I could have an easier time forgiving her for actually murdering someone than for framing someone for murder.
Especially if it was a crime of passion. Yeah,
I could
agree.
see heat of the moment, things spiraled. All of a sudden, this was done and there was no way to undo it. What she did was something calculated. I cannot imagine. I have had some dark times in my life. Not that I've ever thought of murdering someone, but I still think I am more likely to murder someone than to frame someone for murder. That is like a calculating thing to do. It was as good an explanation as you could write, but it still is not believable to me.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes her truly, I mean, and this is I think a limitation of the show. You have to see her as a really despicable character who now has to make amends potentially. And like I said, this scene works in the fact that not only her saying this and being emotionally vulnerable with Mel, but Mel, who also feels like she's on the outside right now, like she feels abandoned by her friends, that all of a sudden she finds this communion with, of all people, with Sam, right? So that's kind of fascinating. But she puts everything out there, right? They were best friends in season one, and she slept with her husband. And it's not the fact that they were sleeping together, which, Mel had already
slept with Coop's best friend.
Right, exactly. So that had already happened in one direction, but then she wasn't open about it. She was doing it but the worst thing about it, what does it say about your character? Like you said, I completely agree that if in the heat of the moment you kill somebody, that's a terrible thing to do. But then to be like, oh man, I want this insurance money. Think about the thought process here. If you lay it all out, and it was laid out explicitly in this episode, that she is going to not only want the insurance money, she needs to frame somebody for the killing. And she is framing Coop not because she knew, I've said this before, that it's not that she knew that Coop was the cat burglar and says, oh, you're burgling my house while I'm away? I'm going to frame you for this murder. She framed him for the murder because he wasn't like a good boyfriend to her. Like, that is ridiculous motivation.
Well, not only that, but framing someone, it's not like a split-second decision.
Exactly.
She woke up every day and doubled down on it until she was exposed.
She is talking to, there was a scene in season one where the male investigator calls her on the phone, calls Sam, or Sam calls him. I forget which direction it goes. And they're like flirting. I don't think they actually hook up, but they're flirting with each other. And the reason I mentioned that is because at the time we're like, oh, is he planting evidence? Is she coordinating with him? But it turned out to not be the case because he was blindsided by her involvement. But the reason I mentioned that is, to your point, think about how conniving that is, where she's getting in good with this and flirting with this cop to to exacerbate or to plant the seeds of Coop as the main suspect. Like, this is such a involved framing that, like you said, like it has to speak to your character. It's not like even like I just had the gun, Coop's trunk was open, and I didn't know, oh my God, now what have I done?
Yes.
And I can't. She is like multiple times planting evidence to point the finger at him. It's insane.
Right. So her whole explanation, again, I think it's the best they could have written.
Yes.
To explain this situation.
But she's still a monster.
I still think it's a bananas explanation.
Yes. I totally agree. And now, by the way, the show is like that because of the reasons I just said, where Mel and her have this commune over the fact that they're both like outsiders now, that I think the show is going to be like, now they're friends again. And I'm like, this is
I agree.
Crazy, because this is an utterly unforgivable act. Incredible. I do like the way this conversation goes, though. I think it was well written. I like even the way it builds up, where she says, you slept with my husband. And she's like, oh, that's what we're fighting about? Yeah. I'm like, I'll happily fight with you on that point.
Yeah. What a relief.
Let's not talk about the really big problem. Yeah. So I did like that, even though, overall, it's still absolutely insane that this is supposedly she's supposed to forgive her. It makes no sense. None. Okay, so that is, I think, all I wanted to say on the same character. And like I said, I actually like that scene. And it's one of the few things that I think works really well in this episode. What's nuts is, and this is where the criticism is going to come in, I don't know where this season is even going. We do have the through line of, to your point, of like how this is about the terror of middle age, or at least like the ennui of it, right? Like
yes, at a minimum, if not the impending doom of death. Yes.
Right. Which of course is there as well, but especially in this particular episode. But what's even crazier about all that is that they finally have on and off, finally, I think maybe in episode 3, have come upon having this intriguing character, the Marsden character, him and Coop, whenever they're on screen together, it works. When he's with Sam, those scenes work. Everything's working with the Marsden character in general. I didn't like to see him all high last week, which is kind of, you could have done that with any other character. I'm not sure why you needed to give that to him as well. But regardless, that you finally have hit on a dynamic that could be intriguing to explore, and seeing how Coop and him are the same or different, right? And maybe both criminals, they both are morally compromised, but Coop definitely doesn't see himself in the same way as the Ash character does. And then yet there is some middle ground where they're both, this gray area where they both are in, and that could be really interesting. And then after basically just establishing that 2 episodes ago and developing it a little bit last week, we are now in the middle of the season, and we basically have no Ash in the entire episode until like the last 2 minutes.
Barely any.
Which is insane. I'm like, what is like, it just again makes me feel like they don't really have a plan for the season, or maybe worse, it's my pet peeve. They have like enough like story for the main structure of this entire series about this cat burglar and robbing from his own friends, stealing things from them that they don't even notice are being stolen. Like that whole idea of like, this kind of the wealth that's so enormous that you can sustain yourself just off the things that they've forgotten that they own. That's a really intriguing exploration to go into, and like a Robin Hood aspect of it as well. But they are maybe only have enough plot for 2 or 3 episodes. So they're just going to give us like 1 or 2 episodes at the beginning of the season, 1 or 2 at the end. And then everything in the middle is going to be just menopause. And, Allie gets into a fight with a student in the classroom or something. Like what? I just feel like the show has no focus. The characters this episode, other than thematically being tied together, are just off doing their own things. They barely interact with each other. I mean, you
want to talk about off doing their own thing? Yes. Can I just have 1 minute about this?
Please.
Awful Elena subplot.
Yes, the brother. I completely forgot about the brother, and now he's back again. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, a cousin, whatever it is.
Yes.
First of all, again, as you're saying, she's not linked to anything, really. She's at that party trying to hostess the party, kind of, or, run the logistics of the party, and she gets pulled away. But other than that, okay, I don't like to get involved in legal things because I'm not here as a lawyer, right? I'm just a person that happens to be a lawyer who's having a conversation about a television show. But a $50,000 bail is not the same as the bond that you should get when you need to get somebody out of jail,
right? Which
is generally 10% of the bail. And so she never needed.
It's not even like, well, I don't know what things are. I mean, like to your point, though, because you said it's not even like we've had similar conversations in the past with other similar circumstances on other shows. And we're like, well, maybe in New Mexico, it's, but this is New York. It's a 10%. Yeah.
So she never needed $50,000. That's my first problem. However, it's good that she came up with the 50 because the guy ended up jumping bail.
Yes.
Exactly. So she'd be in more trouble with the bail bondsman if he jumped bail. So I guess it's for the best. But I didn't like the fact that they acted like there was no other option but to get 50,000. She could have just had to come up with about 5. First. Second, what the heck did the guy do? Did we ever find out?
$50,000, right? I mean, they don't even explain it. They don't even bother to explain it. It's like...
No, but I mean, what did he even do to get thrown in jail? Do we know?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't think they explain anything at all. No.
Like, what is this? Why did we bother with this?
They didn't even explain it, by the way. She goes to talk to that other guy who's, been an intimidator in last season as well, was a threat late in last season. Completely forgot about this. All this home dynamic, honestly, was not important last year. It wasn't interesting, I should say, last year. I totally forgot it until this moment. But then she says, what did you get him into? And they yada yada all of it. It's just like, oh, he did this on his own. He did this with this other guy. And it's like, did what? What is the arbitrary $50,000 bail?
A drug deal? Is that what we're supposed to think? Because isn't this also the security camera hookup, or is that a different guy?
No, it's a different guy. That's a
different guy. Okay, different family member. But either way, all of this was so poorly executed that I don't understand why we needed it. Maybe it will make sense later, but.
And the two things I couldn't, this is a specific pain point, but there's so many things in the plot that supposedly are supposed to be ratcheting up tension, but this show, for being any element, have thriller elements to it, is never suspenseful, right? Like you have the situation where Ash is caught Coop red-handed and there was no tension in that. And now we have this situation where, oh my God, Elena's brother or cousin, whoever this guy is, relative, has flown the coop and now she might be in trouble, might be on the line for this $50,000. Meanwhile, that money's all tied up in, the gym, and Barney could be in trouble. But think about it. That audit that's happening to the gym's funds is being done by Ash. Ash already knows that these people are directly or indirectly working with Coop. So it's just going to confirm what he probably suspected already. I don't think, he'll hold it over their heads, obviously, but I don't really suspect that it is going to change the plot that much. Basically, my point is that stuff happens on this show, but the stakes never seem to ratchet up. I honestly feel like Coop could be like, just like last season, Coop could be like, oh my God, he is framed for murder again. And I'm just going to, the show's just going to shrug it off for the last episode. They'll be like, yeah, we don't want him in jail. He got off on a technicality. Okay, see you next season, everybody. Everything on the show just feels that way. Like it's supposed to matter and it doesn't have any stakes. And it just, like to your point, they introduce so many different plot elements and characters and all this stuff is happening. And I'm like, why? Why do I care? Like, do I really think that the Elena situation is going to pay off at the end of the season? And worst of all, we've talked about this before, the money problem this show always has. Coop easily could have the money at any moment to get himself out of the situation. And I don't think the show intends this, but it's how it reads. He's so nonchalant about everything. I never feel like, oh man, he's really going to get into trouble if he doesn't pay this $100,000. I always feel like he could easily sell his car and get the $100,000. He just doesn't want to because he just figures it's all going to work out. And you know what? It always does work out. But having that attitude does not create suspense about anything that's happening on the show. It's crazy. The show as it is about this middle-age midlife crisis, so that every single time what the show is supposedly about, all of this crime that's going on, is like a distraction from that. And it feels like that as I'm watching. I feel like the show does not care about being the show that it is on the label, which is insane. I don't understand how you make a show like this. It's kind of shocking, actually.
Yeah, I don't have the answer.
Oh, here's the other thing that is a very negative takeaway from this show that didn't come to me. And maybe you've already thought about the Sauna, and I just had not come to me for whatever reasons. Maybe just because the show is not able to do this balancing act. The show this show, I think, wants to be is The Sopranos. Because when you think about The Sopranos, everybody would be disappointed. No one got whacked. They kill one person per season or two people per season max. You get two or three. If you get three people dead in a season of Sopranos, that was a big season, right? But it is about a mobster, right? But it wasn't, right? It was about the teenagers and their issues and and Tony feeling out of like a fish out of water, even though he's like living in this upper middle class neighborhood and everybody knows who he is, but they have to pretend like he's just a regular guy. So it's really about like being not cut out to be in the upper middle class. And so in a lot of ways, a lot of the character dynamics, a lot of the thematic concerns overlap a lot with this show. But the difference with The Sopranos is that all that stuff made the show suspenseful, right? Like for all the kids getting into trouble, going away for the weekend, lying to the dad about what's going on, you're like, oh my God, is this kid going to end up dead or something, right? Because the stakes were so high. So all of that tension that Tony was feeling all the time, literally think about the finale of that show, which I won't ruin here, but I think everybody knows what it is. But like the tension that he's feeling all the time, we're literally in his POV of the anxiety that he felt all the time. So all the mundane crap that's going on in his life is all in the context of this constant anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was great for that show. And here we have a protagonist that has, like, he could care less about whether he ends up in jail or not. And somehow that's supposed to be compelling TV. I don't understand at all. I'm really confused as to where the show is going. Do you have a more generous read on all this? Would you be happy? Maybe that's a question I'll ask you. Would you be happy if the show continues to lean into being more about midlife and really does forget about its crime thriller elements, which I think is the show it wants to be? Do you feel, would you be happy with that direction?
Well, I think the hook of the show is the burglaries. So it would be hard to put that aside unless it was a really excellent exploration of midlife and the associated issues, which this show has not demonstrated that it's capable of doing.
Exactly. Like I don't, yeah. I mean, even if it was
so if you're not going to do that, then you've got to stay very fun and entertaining.
Right.
And I'm not sure it's hitting that target either.
I mean, that's really hard too. Like, and this is going to sound really negative, and maybe it is.
Because it is.
I don't know if I wanted to, like, people probably still, who are listening to this, probably still like the show. And this is going to sound very negative. But I do think to myself, on all these characters, who do I really care about? Like, do I care? Well, what's going to happen to Mel? I don't really care. What's going to happen to the kids? I really don't care. You know, I mean, the only person I really want to know more about on the show is Ash. And I don't think the show cares that much about Ash, right? I really do want to understand, like, how did he make this money? What happened to his wife? Was it like some kind of signal that was sent to him, or what's his backstory? I'm sure that's an interesting backstory. I don't know if they really care about telling it. They might just give us a 20-minute, monologue from him in the season finale or something. I don't know if that's enough to get me through the whole season. And Coop, I don't understand. Again, there was a time, just given the premise of the show, where in season 1, I'm really curious to be like, why is he throwing it all away? Why is he doing this? Like, I was really fascinated by that character. I feel at this point, I really don't care. Like, do I care right now if he gets this $400 million deal? If it doesn't come through, if Ash blackmails him or doesn't, do I really think it's going to have any real impact? Like, are there any real stakes basically at all? I don't think so. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, by the way, it's very hard to have sympathy for these characters as they're defined when they're just like, I want a $10 million house and I complain when I can't live at this ridiculously high standard. Like, there's nobody here is sympathetic, except for maybe Sam. Sam is maybe the only sympathetic character here, as ironic as that is, considering how much I disliked her not that long ago.
Yeah.
It's tough. And Elena, I'm not really sympathetic towards Elena either. And, she could be someone who would be easily to be, sympathetic to, but definitely not sympathetic to her brother. Or this is it brother or cousin? Who's this guy? Because her cousin is the guy who does the alarms, right?
Maybe that's why I got confused.
And I think this is her brother.
Okay.
I mean, she's just got to cut him off. I mean, this is crazy. Like, I like how he's like this attitude of like, hey, go ahead, go clean people's toilets.
Yeah,
it's just like, how do you think the rent gets paid here, buddy?
Seriously.
Shut up.
That and the robberies.
Well, yeah, he doesn't know about those, I can assume. And he takes her money. He took all his stuff. Right? Did he take her stuff too? That would be an extra slap in the face. Yeah, and then next week they are probably going to have the funeral. The family's going to all be together. Coop's terrible mother will probably become a bigger part of the plot. Another character I love. Hear the irony in my voice?
I'll wait to see more.
She's so insufferable. And I'm like, it was actually impressive this week to be like, oh, remember how horrible she is as a character? I'm like, they barely use her this season. Maybe they're just going to use her very sparingly. And then now that Coop's dad has passed away, I'm like, oh my God, she's going to be, calling Coop like
right.
Actually, I don't know if she's going to be calling Coop all the time, but he's going to be worried about her all the time because she's alone.
Right.
So she's definitely going to become a much bigger part of the show. And I'm like, oh man, is this the show I want to be watching? I don't know, man. I don't know. Oh man, it's rough.
They're
It's rough.
testing the limits of John Hamm's charisma for sure.
Oh, they really are. I mean, seriously. I have to say that I was laughing to myself, just internally, not out loud. But the whole thing where his back's been bothering him all season, I should say.
Yeah.
And then he even tweaks it when he's trying to hang up the TV, which can't be that heavy. These TVs are not that heavy.
I was thinking the same thing. I can lift this TV, no problem.
And then he's like trying to like be like, finally he gets to hook up with that billionairess, what he always wanted to do. They're finally going to do it. And I'm like, his back is not going to hold up. But he did it. No, he did. He was able, he took all his muscle relaxers ahead of time.
I guess so.
Oh God. I'm like, that would be especially fun if he's just like, yeah, finally all that build up to that scene. And he's just like, oh, my back. That would have been a great punchline, but I guess they didn't go that route. Would have been more realistic though. Anyway, we will see how that all pans out next week. So we have 5 more episodes. I thought it was 4 because last season was only 9, but 5 more episodes, Sauna. And I got to tell you, it has been a very bumpy ride getting this far. And this thing has already been renewed for season 3. I don't know. I think they might have been a little preemptive. And
I heard it ends on a huge cliffhanger, but I'm not sure what it would be.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. Haven't seen any spoilers about what the cliffhanger would be. That's a big concern for me too. I feel like there's so much wheel spinning from week to week currently that they could be like a big, all the stuff where like, I can't wait to see how Ash leverages this or what Ash's backstory really is. Or is now Coop going to be indebted to like really nefarious characters? And that might all be true, but it's all going to happen in the last 2 episodes. And I'm going to be like, oh, how frustrating. All of this pays off in season 3. Don't give me a whole season just to spin your wheels. I don't appreciate that at all. Anyway, that's my opinion. I do want to circle back to the fact that in taking the notes for this conversation, like the points that you addressed as well, I didn't see them in the moment. I was a little irritated, but there is kind of a thematic through line of people dealing with this midlife situation. And maybe if I keep focusing on that really hard, that will continue to develop over the course of the rest of the season. It's going to be hard to not have that as subtext to the next episode. So maybe that's a way to watch the show. But man, I really had trouble with this episode.
Yeah, there were definitely points during this episode where I thought, are we going to finish this?
I'm thinking the same thing.
Which is pretty bad.
Yeah. And by the way, I haven't had a conversation with you about this, but the downloads for this episode, I look at the our audience's reaction to these, and the episodes have been good. They've been above average, but the first season of the show was very popular. And I have a feeling that it's not only our coverage that's less popular. I have a feeling this show is less popular.
I mean, that makes me feel a little bit better.
It's not just us, Sauna. It's also the show. Anyway, I guess we'll know more next week. Oh, did you by chance have a chance to check out Widow's Bay? Did you watch this?
No, but I'm intrigued. Have you watched it?
I saw there's 2 episodes available. They do the traditional, it's weird with Apple, season 1. They do 2 seasons. With Margot's Got Money Troubles, they did 3 episodes. And it made sense if you watch the first 3. It ends where really the pilot should have ended, I think. I find that it was over 3 episodes. I mean, I actually really am enjoying that. So anyways, digression there. But anyway, 2 episodes available week 1. And I really like this. It's really odd. Someone described it, one of the critics I was reading described it as Jaws meets Veep meets The Shining, I think was what they said. And I'm like, that's actually
intriguing.
Yeah, it's actually a completely unique tone. It is comedic, but everybody plays it straight. And there is one really scary scene in episode 2, I should say. Matthew Rhys is the star. He's very good playing this. It's really fascinating. In episode 1, he is playing the mayor. This is where the Jaws reference comes from. He's trying to make this island off the coast of somewhere in New England They want to make it into like literally a New York Times travel writer comes and says, this is going to be the new Martha's Vineyard. And he's so excited about this. But then you realize something happened to him when he was a kid, that he actually does believe all these ghost stories about the island. So he's maybe the most skittish, although he presents himself as being like the most like, come on, everybody get over it. But that's where I think it is the Jaws analogy, where he's trying to like lure travelers to this island. And it does seem like if you believe the mythology, that something really bad's going to happen. So that's like, the Jaws 4th of July bloodbath on the beach, which I think is the reference there. But then also there's like a time where he spends, this is where the Shining reference comes in. He spends a time in a hotel, which is an operational hotel, but everybody goes, go ahead. I dare you to do these things that you're not supposed to do when you're in a hotel. And he has these weird interactions where maybe he's by himself. Maybe there are ghosts there. Maybe someone's pranking him. And it has just kind of a very spooky vibe. And
it's
good.
In any way American Horror Story adjacent?
Oh,
because
no.
That's my concern.
No. It's not like over the top in that way at all. It's not. I mean, not so far, but it is very grounded so far. And so much of what you see can be just explained by someone who's, just bought into this island's lore. It is nothing grotesque and over the top in its style at all. It's very naturalistic primarily. So yeah, I mean, check it out. Check out the first 2 episodes. I think you'll probably enjoy it. And the comedy of it is just, it's taking the situation at its face, as if it's actually, and these artists, these actors are all very good at playing a comedic scene, but playing it total straight faced, which I like that too. By the way, it's one of the creators of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So like it's that kind of tone where it's like you're watching something and it's playing it straight. Like, Mrs. and Mr. Smith felt oftentimes like you're watching a Bond movie, but then there's all this kind of like character stuff. Like what would a character really in this circumstance, how would they react? And that's where the comedy comes from. Yeah. And that's the kind of what they're playing with there. So I think you'll enjoy it. Check it out. Yeah. Give it a shot. And I thought it was kind of really quirky in tone. Like, is this going to be popular? But the audience scores on like Rotten Tomatoes, on some of these other websites, have been really positive. So I think however they've been marketing this, it appeared to get pretty good numbers the first week. And I'm like, are people going to vibe with this? It seems like the people who are watching it are really into it. So I'm like, oh, that's great. So I'm definitely going to watch that one. But check that out, because if we run out of things to say about your friends and family, maybe we'll talk about that. Oh, you know what? A couple of minutes I'm going to give you, if you can answer this question. Don't feel pressured if you can't. But did you finish Imperfect Women, and how was the finale?
I did finish Imperfect Women. I cannot recommend this show.
Okay. I think that's all we needed to know.
Okay. There were good things about it, and I'm not sorry I watched it. But on the whole, this is not the best way for someone to spend their time. Okay.
So I made the right choice. After quitting halfway through episode 1, I made the right choice. I'm glad. Okay. All right, Sona. So we will touch base next week. And
sounds good. Fingers crossed.
Exactly. And check out, try out the Widow's Bay. There should be 3 episodes by next week, but check out the 2 that are out there now. I think they're kind of in between. They're not like 45 minutes long. They're not 25 minutes long. They're like 38 minutes long, but relatively short episodes. So.
Oh, hey, one more thing I wanted to say. One more closing complaint about your friends and neighbors.
Please.
These episodes are too dang long.
Too long. Yes. Maybe to that point, I completely agree. And I really feel that in watching them, that when you're really stretching an episode out to an hour, especially like this particular episode specifically, there's so much plot crammed in there. And like you said before, it's not really explored well. It's just putting more stuff in there so everyone has something to do. I'm like, you know what? Maybe if they were 40-minute episodes, you wouldn't be trying to cram so much plot in there.
Yeah, I was thinking 45, but yes, I'm aligned with you on that.
I mean, it might have been 45 minutes. It felt like an hour and 10 minutes.
No, it was like 50. I think the running time was 54, but that's with all the other stuff.
With all the other stuff. So yeah, maybe it's closer to 50, but it's still, to me, I felt the length here. I felt like it was way too long. I agree. We're in agreement again. So
amazing.
All right. Thanks again for the conversation. And
talk to you soon.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.